My parents chose my sister's abusive husband over me when I spoke out, so I left. Now they call daily, but I'll never answer. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always protected my little sister. Her name is Maya. She's 2 years younger than me, and for as long as I can remember, I've been her shield. From bullies on the playground to our own emotionally distant parents, I was always the one standing in front of her, taking the hits no one else would. Our parents were complicated. They weren't evil, just cold, distant. Maya was the golden child, the delicate one. She got cuddles and soft voices. I got silence and expectations. If I cried, I was weak. If I failed, I was lazy. But Maya? If she stumbled, they'd move mountains to lift her up. I used to think that was just how life worked. That maybe I was made to carry the weight so she could float. And I never complained, not once. Not when I missed my own birthday so she could have a recital. Not when I gave up my college savings so she wouldn't drop out. That's just what big brothers do, right? But you learn a lot about people when they fall in love. Maya met him when she was 22. Brian. Slick smile, perfect hair, expensive shoes. He walked into our lives like he owned the air in the room. At first I thought, good for her. Someone who treats her right. But something about him felt off, too polished, too rehearsed. Like he was playing a role he'd memorized. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't want to ruin her happiness. I thought maybe I was just being protective. But I didn't realize then that staying quiet was the biggest mistake I'd ever make. The first time I met Brian, he shook my hand like he was closing a business deal. His eyes didn't meet mine. They scanned me, like he was sizing up a threat. "You must be the big brother," he said with a smirk that never quite reached his eyes. He dressed like a tech bro, but talked like a politician. Always flattering, always calculated. Maya beamed beside him, completely unaware. I tried to be open-minded. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe I was just used to being on edge. But the more I watched him, the more alarm bells rang. He never let Maya talk for herself. He spoke for her. He told us what she liked, what she thought, what she really meant. And every time she flinched or hesitated, he covered it with a laugh. My gut kept screaming, but my mouth stayed shut. When I brought up my concerns to Maya, she laughed it off. "He's just protective," she said. "You're just being overbearing." I backed off. I didn't want to be that brother, the one who ruins every relationship out of paranoia. So I let it slide, but my parents? They loved him. They went full Hallmark movie mode. My dad called him son. My mom invited him to family dinners like he was already married in. It was nauseating. "You could learn a thing or two from Brian," my father said once. I wanted to punch a hole through the wall. Every part of me wanted to believe I was wrong. That Maya was happy and I was just bitter. But I started noticing the little things. The way she stopped calling me. The way she didn't post selfies anymore. The way she stopped smiling in photos with him. It wasn't love. It was control. And it was only getting worse. The first time I noticed the bruise, we were at our parents' house for dinner. Maya reached for a glass of water and her sleeve slipped. Faint, but there, an ugly mark on her wrist, just above where a bracelet sat awkwardly, like it had been deliberately placed. Our eyes met for a second. She froze, pulled the sleeve down quickly, laughed it off. "Banged it on a drawer," she said. But her voice shook when she said it. I knew. But what was I supposed to do? I waited until Brian left the room and cornered her. "Is he hurting you?" I asked, my voice low, trying not to cause a scene. She shook her head so fast it looked rehearsed. "No, don't make it a thing. He just gets stressed sometimes." That sentence haunted me for days. Stressed sometimes. I tried to talk to our parents. I thought finally they'd see the cracks I was seeing, but they just sighed. My dad said relationships are hard. Maybe you're projecting. My mom nodded and added, "You've always been so dramatic when it comes to Maya." Like I was inventing danger just to get attention. Like protecting her made me the problem. The next time I saw them, Brian greeted me with a smug smile and an extra firm handshake. Like he knew I had no power. Like he was daring me to say something. Maya just sat there, quiet, eyes darting, smile empty. That night I went home with a pit in my stomach, and for the first time I started to wonder if loving someone this much was actually hurting them. I started keeping notes. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Every time I saw something off, Maya flinching when Brian raised his voice, the way she avoided hugs, how her texts got shorter and less frequent. I wrote it down. Dates, times, screenshots. I even recorded one dinner where Brian made a joke about women needing to stay in their place, and everyone laughed except Maya and me. Still, I second-guessed myself constantly. I brought it up to my parents again. I showed them the texts, how Maya told me she wasn't allowed to see her friends, how Brian checked her messages for her own good. My mom glanced over the screenshots, then handed my phone back like I was showing her the weather. "She told us she's fine," she said flatly. "You need to stop obsessing." "Obsessing?" I snapped. "You think I want this? I'm trying to stop something before it gets worse." My dad just muttered, "You've always had a flair for the dramatic." That's when it hit me. They didn't want to believe me. Believing me meant accepting that the man they welcomed into their home, the one they compared me to, was a monster. It was easier to call me unstable than face that truth. Brian had them wrapped around his finger. I could feel him tightening his grip every day, and I was starting to wonder, if even my own parents didn't believe me, how the hell was I supposed to help Maya? It was almost midnight when I heard a knock at my apartment door. I opened it to find Maya, hair messy, hoodie soaked from the rain, eyes swollen like she'd been crying for hours. She didn't say a word, just stepped inside and wrapped her arms around me so tightly I could feel her shaking. "He locked me out," she whispered. "Because I forgot to cook dinner." I stood there, fists clenched, heart racing, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're staying here tonight," I said. "You're safe, okay? I promise." She nodded, eyes distant, like she wasn't fully in her body. I made her tea, gave her dry clothes, let her sleep in my room while I took the couch. That night, I sat in the dark, phone in my lap, watching it light up with texts from Brian. Brian. "Where is she?" Brian. "You're dead if you don't answer me." Brian. "She's mine." "You don't get to interfere," I wanted to reply. I wanted to threaten him, expose him, drag his name through the dirt. But I knew better. If I engaged, it would only escalate. In the morning, Maya was gone, her borrowed clothes folded neatly on the bed. No note, just silence. I called her. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I drove to her apartment. She wasn't there. It felt like a nightmare that looped endlessly. I finally thought she was choosing herself, that I was helping her escape, that I mattered, but she went back, and I realized loving someone isn't always enough to save them. The call came later that afternoon. My mom's voice was sharp. No hello, no hesitation. "How dare you kidnap your sister?" I froze. "What?" "Brian told us everything," she snapped. "You manipulated her. Took her while he was at work. Do you realize what kind of damage you've caused?" It was like I'd stepped into an alternate reality. "I didn't kidnap her," I said, struggling to keep my voice calm. She showed up at my door. She was crying. She told me he locked her out. There was a pause. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd listen. Instead, my dad grabbed the phone and said, "Enough. You've been trying to ruin Maya's life ever since she met him. You're jealous." That word, jealous, hit me like a slap. Jealous of what? Of an abusive control freak who treats her like property? I realized then that Brian had already rewritten the story. He'd framed me as the unstable brother, the bitter sibling who couldn't stand his sister's happiness. And my parents bought it. No hesitation, no questions. I tried to call Maya, straight to voicemail. Texted her, no reply. It was like the night before never happened. Then came the kicker. My dad texted me, "Until you apologize to Brian, don't come to this house again. Apologize." To Brian. I stared at the screen, feeling like the floor had collapsed beneath me. My own parents had exiled me for doing the right thing, and in that moment I realized I wasn't just losing Maya, I was losing my entire family. I don't know what pushed me to show up that night. Maybe I still believed they could change. Maybe I needed to see Maya with my own eyes. Family dinner. Just like old times, except everything was fake. Brian sat at the head of the table like a king, laughing with my parents like nothing ever happened. Maya sat beside him silent, picking at her food. No makeup, hair tied back, shoulders hunched like she was trying to disappear. "Nice of you to show up," Brian said smugly when I walked in. "Didn't think you were invited." I didn't answer him. I looked at Maya. "Do you want to be here?" I asked quietly. She didn't speak. Just blinked hard and looked away. I lost it. I stood up and unloaded everything, the bruises, the threats, The night she ran to me, the messages. I told them I had screenshots, photos, timestamps. I told them Brian was a manipulative, controlling abuser, and they were enabling him. That their silence was betrayal. My mom looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. My dad just sighed and said, "We're done with this. You clearly have issues. You need help." Then came the sentence I'll never forget. "If you can't respect Maya's husband, then you don't belong in this family. They chose him over me, over her." Maya sat there and cried silently, not saying a word, and I realized this wasn't just denial, it was delusion. They weren't going to save her. They weren't going to believe her, and no matter how hard I tried, they would never choose me. A few days after that disaster of a dinner, I was at a local coffee shop, just trying to get out of my apartment and clear my head. That's when I heard someone say his name, Brian. I looked up. 2 women at the next table were talking, and one of them said, "Yeah, I dated him a few years ago. He was charming at first, but behind closed doors. Total psycho, controlling, paranoid. I had to change my number." I leaned over, heart racing. "Sorry, I couldn't help overhearing." "You're talking about Brian Matthews?" The woman turned, startled, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, why?" I told her. Everything. Not the full story, but enough. Her eyes widened. She told me her name was Rachel, that she'd been with Brian for a year. He isolated her from her family, accused her of cheating constantly. One time he even tracked her phone. She tried to report him, but he always stayed just this side of illegal. My hands were shaking. "You're not crazy," she said gently. "He's done this before. Probably will again." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone. I asked her if she'd be willing to talk on video. Not to go public, just to document it. She agreed. When I got home, I started compiling everything. Rachel's statement, screenshots, Brian's threats, Maya's texts from that night. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but it felt like something solid. Something real. Proof that I wasn't the one twisting reality, and maybe I wasn't the only one who could still reach Maya. I hadn't heard from Maya in weeks. Every message I sent vanished into silence. I kept thinking about that night she showed up soaked, trembling, and then left without a word. I couldn't stop wondering what had made her go back. Fear? Shame? Pressure? Then, one night, I got a text, just a single emoji. It was our secret code from when we were kids. Back then, whenever we were stuck in a situation we couldn't explain, like when Dad yelled too much or Mom ignored us, we'd draw a little dove on scraps of paper. It meant get me out. I stared at that tiny icon for a full minute, my heart pounding. I texted back instantly, "Where are you?" No reply, but 20 minutes later, I got a second message, a pinned location to a park near the outskirts of town. I drove like my tires were on fire. It was nearly 11 p.m. when I spotted her on a bench near the old swing set. She looked even thinner than before. Hoodie zipped to her chin. She didn't speak at first, just stood when she saw me and wrapped her arms around me so tightly it nearly broke me. "I can't do it anymore," she whispered. I nodded. "You don't have to. We didn't go to my place. Too risky." I took her to a friend's guest room, made sure she had clean clothes, something to eat, and quiet. For the first time in months, I thought maybe, just maybe, we were turning a corner, but I should have known. The moment you think you're safe, that's when the real storm hits. The next morning, I woke up to 20 missed calls. 5 from my mom, 14 from Brian, 1 from an unknown number that turned out to be the police. They said they got a report of a missing woman, Maya, and that I might be involved. I couldn't believe it. Brian reported her missing. After she escaped him. My own sister, my family, reporting me like I was some kind of criminal. I told the officer everything, calmly, truthfully. She's safe. She came to me. I have messages. She's an adult. She's not missing. She left. The officer listened. Took notes. Eventually he apologized and left. "This happens more than you'd think," he said. But then Maya got a call from Dad. I sat beside her on the bed as she answered, her hands trembling. "Where the hell are you?" He barked through the speaker. "Do you realize what you've put Brian through?" Maya's lips parted, but no words came. "You ran off like some drama queen and now your brother's involved again? He's poisoning you against your own family." I grabbed the phone and hung up. Maya broke. She collapsed into sobs, knees pulled to her chest. They knew, she whispered. They knew what he did, and they still took his side. It was the first time she'd admitted it out loud. I didn't say anything, just pulled her close and let her cry, because what could I say? How do you explain that the people who raised you would rather believe a stranger than their own child? It didn't take long for Brian to escalate. 3 days after Maya left him for good, he showed up at my apartment building. I wasn't even home. My neighbor called me, panicked. There's some guy pounding on your door, yelling your name. You need to get back here. When I arrived, Brian was still there, red-faced, pacing, hands clenched into fists. There you are, you little snake, he growled. Think you can just steal my wife and get away with it? Maya wasn't even with me. But logic didn't matter to a guy like him. I pulled out my phone and started recording. You need to leave, I said, voice calm but shaking underneath. You're trespassing. I've already talked to the police. He stepped closer. You think anyone's gonna believe you over me? I've got proof, I said. So maybe try thinking this through before you make it worse. He spit at the ground. You'll regret this. Then he walked off, slow, like he wanted me to know he wasn't done. That night, I uploaded the footage, face blurred, voice distorted, to a private support group for domestic violence survivors and advocates. Just to warn others, it exploded. Within hours, messages poured in. Women describing nearly identical behavior. Isolation, verbal abuse, financial control. Even one woman who said he tried to blackmail her after they broke up. Brian had a pattern. And now, people were finally talking. I saved every message, every screenshot, every testimony, because if Brian wanted to play dirty, I was ready to drag his lies into the light. A week later, they showed up at my door, my parents. No warning, no text. Just the doorbell ringing at 9 a.m., like they were dropping off muffins. I opened it, and before I could say a word, my mother shoved her phone in my face. On the screen, the video from the survivor group. The one showing Brian screaming at my door. You went public? She hissed. Do you have any idea what you've done to his reputation? I blinked. What I've done to his reputation? My dad stepped forward. People are calling his office, saying he's dangerous. You're destroying a man's life over some relationship drama. I felt my breath leave my body. Maya came into the hallway behind me, pale, silent. She looked at them and said, softly, he choked me, twice, once in the bathroom, once in the car. He screamed at me for talking to a cashier. You know that. You've seen the bruises. My mother looked away. My dad's face hardened. You're exaggerating, he said flatly. You always were emotional. That was the moment something in Maya snapped. She stepped forward. I almost died. I thought about ending my own life just to get out. And all you care about is his image? They said nothing, not a word. Not an ounce of shame, just turned and walked away. That was the last time we saw them in person, and as the door shut behind them, I saw Maya sink to the floor, sobbing, not because of Brian anymore, but because of them, and I knew right then, this was rock bottom, but maybe, just maybe, it was also the beginning of something new. After that day, the silence from our parents was deafening. No more knocks on the door. No more lectures about Brian. Just a string of unread messages piling up on my phone like ghosts. Maya and I decided we couldn't keep living in survival mode. We found her a small apartment near mine. It wasn't fancy, 1-bedroom, 2nd floor walk-up, but it was hers. I helped her paint the walls soft yellow, the color she always said made her feel calm. We bought thrifted furniture, secondhand dishes, little pieces of a life that felt like a new beginning. We started therapy, separately at first, then together. Maya learned to sleep through the night without waking up in panic. I learned how to let go of guilt that wasn't mine to carry. One evening, sitting on her floor surrounded by paint cans, she said quietly, "You saved me." I shook my head. "You saved yourself. I just stood next to you." She smiled at that, a real smile, the first I'd seen in months. But even as we built this tiny world of safety, the messages from our parents kept coming. You broke our family. We miss you. Brian is willing to forgive you both. I'd read them, then delete them. Maya wouldn't even look. We knew it wasn't love in those messages. It was control. Guilt dressed up as concern, and yet every time my phone buzzed, a small part of me still hoped it was an apology. That they'd finally see what they'd done. It never was. And that's when I realized, if we were going to heal, it had to be without them. Every morning, my phone buzzes around the same time. Mom cell, missed call, dad home, missed call, no voicemails, no texts. Just the silent reminder that they're still trying to reach me. At first, it messed with my head. I'd stare at the screen, thumb hovering over the call history, wondering, what if they've changed? What if this is the moment they finally say, "We're sorry. We were wrong. We believe you," but they never did. When I finally let one call go through to voicemail, it was just my dad's voice saying, "We're still your parents. It's time to come home. Brian has moved on. There's no reason to keep holding on to this grudge." A grudge. That's what they think this is. To them, it's not trauma, not survival, not betrayal. It's just two kids throwing a tantrum. I asked Maya once, "Do you think they'll ever get it?" She looked at me with that same tired smile she gives when she knows the answer hurts. No. Because they'd have to admit they abandoned us. And people like them? They rewrite history before they admit guilt. We don't block the calls. Not because we're waiting, because we want the reminder. Every missed call is proof of who they really are. They want access, not accountability. They want the illusion of family, not the work of repair. Some nights, when the apartment's quiet and the world feels a little too heavy, I wonder if I made the right choice walking away. Then I see Maya asleep on the couch, safe and breathing easy, and I remember, peace doesn't come from answers. It comes from choosing yourself. Maya turned 25 last weekend. We didn't throw a party. No big group of friends, no social media posts. Just the two of us, a small cake, and a balcony lit by string lights we put up ourselves. She wore a sundress she hadn't touched in years. I played her favorite songs through a cheap Bluetooth speaker, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't flinch when I raised my voice in laughter. We toasted with sparkling juice. She blew out her candles. And when I asked what she wished for, she said, "This, just this, and maybe some more healing." I looked at her. Really looked at her. The weight in her shoulders had lightened. Her eyes didn't dart anymore. Her voice had strength again. And I realized this wasn't survival anymore. We were living. People always say blood is thicker than water. But I've learned that love, the real kind, has nothing to do with genetics. Love is who shows up when it's hard. Who holds you when you're breaking. Who believes you when no one else does. Maya is my family. Not because she's my sister, but because she chose me and I chose her back. The rest? Let them keep calling. Let them sit in the silence they created. We're not waiting for their approval anymore. We're building something they never gave us. A place where we're safe, believed, and finally free. Sometimes I still hear their voices in my head. My mom's disappointment. My dad's cold logic. Brian's smug laughter echoing through my memories like a bad dream that refuses to fade. They still call. Not every day now, but often enough. I don't answer. Sometimes they leave voicemails. "Your mother is crying herself to sleep. Your sister's fine now. Why keep dragging this out?" Family is supposed to forgive, but they're not asking for forgiveness. They're asking for erasure. They want to skip the truth and fast forward to a version of the story where they didn't fail us, where we're the ones who overreacted, where Brian was just intense and Maya was too sensitive, and me? I was always too much, too protective, too emotional, too involved. But here's the thing. I'd rather be too much than be like them, silent, complicit, blind. I still think about the little boy I was, the one who stood up to bullies on the playground for his little sister, who took the hits so she didn't have to. He didn't know the biggest battle would be inside his own home, but I'm proud of that boy, and the man he became. Because I didn't lose my family, I finally recognized who it was, and no matter how many calls they make, how many guilt-soaked messages they leave, I won't answer. Not out of spite. Not out of hate. But because peace isn't found in going back, it's found in choosing yourself over and over again. And I choose me. I choose her. I choose the life we saved.